"Mom, just sign the house papers." Laura said it while she wiped crumbs off my kitchen table, like she was asking me to pass the salt. She slid a thick envelope toward me. Michael stood at the counter with his coffee, staring down into the mug instead of at me. "It's all ready," she added. "The realtor said we just need your signature." I looked at the envelope as if it were something alive. On the front, in neat black letters, was the address of the little house where I had raised my children. My house. The one my late husband, John, and I spent 30 years paying off. "I thought we were just talking about ideas," I said. My voice sounded thin, like it belonged to someone else. Laura smiled, the polite kind of smile you give a stranger at the store. "We already talked, remember," she said. "You're living here with us now. You don't need that old place. This way we can sell it, put the money toward a bigger home, and everyone wins." Everyone. I glanced around their open-plan kitchen, the quartz counters, the stainless steel fridge with Noah's drawings taped to it. My packed suitcase still sat by the hallway from when I'd moved in after my fall 6 months earlier. Noah's laughter floated from the living room where he was building a tower of blocks. He was 8, all knees and elbows and questions. He had no idea his parents were trying to fold my whole life into a stack of papers. Michael finally spoke. "Mom, it really is the smartest thing," he said, not quite meeting my eyes. "The market is good right now. We're drowning in rent here. If we had a down payment, we could get a house with a yard, a proper room for Noah, and for you." "For me?" I asked. "Well, for all of us," he corrected. "You'd have your own space instead of that little guest room. We're doing this for the family." Laura tapped the pen on the table. "There's a spot marked with a yellow sticky note," she said. "Just sign there. Michael will take it to the realtor at lunch." My hand moved toward the pen out of habit. For decades, I had signed forms for school trips, permission slips, insurance papers, mortgage payments. Mothers sign things. That's what we do. But as my fingers brushed the pen, I noticed another detail on the envelope. Owner of record, Lydia and Cole. My name, not Michael and Laura. Not the Cole family. Just mine. A strange, quiet feeling rose in my chest. It wasn't anger yet. It was more like standing at the edge of a cliff and finally looking down. "What happens to me if something happens to you?" I asked quietly. Laura blinked. "What do you mean?" "If the house is in your names, what happens to me?" I repeated. "Where do I live? Who decides that?" "Oh, Mom." Laura sounded almost impatient. "You don't have to worry about that. We'll always take care of you. You're overthinking it." Overthinking. That word again. People used it whenever an older woman asked a question they didn't want to answer. Michael checked his watch. "I really have to go," he said. "Could you just sign, Mom? We can talk details later." I looked up at my son. He was 42, broad-shouldered, with the same cowlick he'd had as a boy. I had held him while he tripped over his first words. Now he stood there asking me to sign away the only thing in this world that still had my name on it. My hand pulled back from the pen. "I need time," I said. "I won't sign anything I don't understand." The room went very still. Laura's cloth froze on the table. Michael's jaw tightened. "It's just standard paperwork," he insisted. "Then it can wait," I answered. I pushed the envelope back toward them, my fingers trembling so violently I had to fold them in my lap. In that moment, with the morning sun on the kitchen tiles and the smell of coffee in the air, I realized something I had never wanted to admit. In my son's new life, I was not a partner. I was an asset. A signature. A way to make the numbers work. Back then, I had no idea that refusing that pen would change everything. Where I lived, how my son saw me, and how I saw myself. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, stay with me, you need to hear what happened next. That night I lay awake on the narrow guest bed, staring at the shadows on the ceiling. Down the hall, I could hear Laura's low voice and Michael's deeper one, sometimes sharp, sometimes muffled. They thought I was asleep. They forgot how thin the walls in a rented apartment could be. "She's being stubborn," Laura whispered. "Your sisters would have begged their mother to move in. She should be grateful." "Laura, she just got here," Michael said. "Maybe it's a lot to process. And we're supposed to sit here and waste time while the market drops? We can't afford to miss this chance. We've already talked to the lender. They're expecting that house money, Michael." Long pause. "We'll convince her," he said finally. "She always comes around." I turned on my side, facing the wall, and pressed my hand over my mouth to keep from making a sound. He was right. For most of my life, I had come around. When John wanted to take a second job instead of fixing his blood pressure, I had nodded. When Michael chose a college far away, I had smiled and packed his bags. When my arthritis made it hard to manage the house alone, I had quietly sold my car and hired a neighbor's boy to shovel the snow instead of bothering anyone. Coming around was what mothers did. But coming around was how my whole life had ended up in other people's hands. The next morning, while Laura drove Noah to school and Michael rushed off to work, I sat at the table with the envelope in front of me. I put on my reading glasses and started to read. Words blurred together: transfer of ownership, warranty deed, consideration, grantor hereby conveys. There was a small line at the bottom that made my heart pound harder. After closing, the grantor acknowledges having no further claim or interest in the property described above. No further claim. No interest. As if I had never scrubbed those floors. Never painted those walls. Never cooked the meals that fed my family there. I took off my glasses and rubbed my eyes. I could almost smell the old house. Lemon oil from the wood polish. Tomatoes simmering on the stove. The faint trace of John's aftershave in the hallway long after he was gone. I wiped a tear away with the heel of my hand, angry at myself. Crying over paper wouldn't change anything. On the counter lay the little flip phone I still used. I scrolled through my contacts until I found Margaret Church. Margaret had been my friend for 30 years. She had seen me through John's cancer, the funeral, and the lonely years after. She answered on the second ring. "Lydia? Is everything all right?" I swallowed hard. "Do you remember that lawyer who came to speak at the seniors' luncheon? The one who talked about wills and rights?" "Yes," Margaret said slowly. "Why?" "I think I need his number." The senior legal clinic was in a tired brick building downtown. The waiting room smelled of coffee and winter coats. A TV in the corner played an old game show on low volume. I sat there clutching my purse while my hands shook. I hadn't been downtown alone since John passed. "Mrs. Cole?" a young woman called. She looked barely older than my grandson, with dark braids pulled back and kind eyes behind her glasses. "I'm Anna," she said. "I'm one of the attorneys here. Margaret told me to expect you." I sat in the small office and poured the story out: John's death, the years alone in my little house, the fall that had scared Michael into insisting I move in with them. The envelope on the kitchen table. Anna listened without interrupting, only nodding now and then. When I finished, she said, "First, I'm glad you came. Second, that house is in your name only. Is that right?" "Yes," I said. "John left it to me. It's all paid off." "Then you are under no obligation to sign anything that transfers your ownership," she said firmly. "If you choose to sell, that's your decision. But no one can force you." I stared at her, but they said. "People say a lot of things when they're stressed about money," she replied gently. "You're allowed to want security. Especially at your age. At your age. Coming from most people, those words stung. Coming from her, they felt like a shield. What happens if I keep it? I asked. I can't live there alone, not full-time. The stairs. You have options, Anna said. You could rent it out and keep the income for your care. You could move to a smaller senior apartment and use the house money later. You could set up a trust with conditions for your children. But whatever you do, you stay on the deed until you decide otherwise. Her words settled inside me like stones, steady and solid. When I left the clinic, the air felt different. The buildings downtown were the same, the traffic was the same, but I was not. On the bus ride back, I watched people's faces. Young women in scrubs, an older man holding a bouquet of supermarket flowers, a teenager with headphones bobbing his head. Everyone carried invisible stories. Mine did not have to end with me giving away the last thing I owned. That evening, when Michael came home, he dropped his keys in the bowl by the door and glanced at the table. "Did you sign?" he asked. I slid the envelope back toward him, still sealed. "No," I said. "I went to speak with a lawyer instead." He froze. "A lawyer?" "Mom, why would you?" "Because I needed to understand what I was signing," I answered. "And now I do." Laura walked in from the hallway, untying her scarf. "What's going on?" "Your mother went to a lawyer," Michael said stiffly. Laura's eyes widened. "You did what?" "I learned that the house is mine," I said calmly. "And that I don't have to sell it if I don't want to." Laura laughed, a short, sharp sound. "Of course you don't have veto," she said. "But be reasonable, Mom. Why would you keep an empty house while we're squeezed in here? You can't live there alone. You're fragile. What if you fall again?" "Being fragile doesn't mean being foolish," I replied. "That house is my safety. It's all I have. If I sign it over, I become your dependent in every way." "You already are," she shot back. "We cook for you, drive you to appointments." "Laura," Michael interrupted quietly. She turned on him. "We're just supposed to keep paying for everything while her money sits in a building?" I looked at my son. His face was drawn, lines of worry around his eyes. "Is this about me?" I asked. "Or about the house you want?" He exhaled, shoulders slumping. "It's both," he admitted. "We're tired of renting. No one needs space. We thought you'd be happy if we were all together." "Together," I repeated. "Or under the same roof?" Noah chose that moment to burst in from his room, waving a toy spaceship. "Grandma, look. It can fly." He climbed into my lap before anyone could stop him. His little body was warm and solid against me, smelling of crayons and peanut butter. "Where will your spaceship land?" I asked, stroking his hair. "Here," he said confidently. "This is home." Home. The word caught in my throat. That night, after everyone went to bed, I opened the small suitcase I had brought with me, the one with my clothes for a few weeks that had turned into half a year. Under the neatly folded sweaters was a worn manila folder. Inside were John's death certificate, the deed to the house, and a letter he had written me when he knew he was dying. "Liddy, promise me you'll be safe," it said in his crooked handwriting. "Don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. You were never just my wife. You were the one who kept this whole house together. Remember that." I pressed the letter to my chest and cried quietly so no one would hear. The next morning, I made a decision. While Laura took Noah to school and Michael went to work, I called Margaret. "Do you still have the number for that senior apartment building near the park?" I asked. "Of course," she said. "Lydia, are you thinking about moving?" "I'm thinking about living," I replied. "There's a difference." Over the next week, I toured a small one-bedroom in a building for older adults. Nothing fancy, a little balcony, a community room downstairs, a shuttle to the grocery store, but the lease would be in my name. Mine. I met with Anna again and set up a simple plan. I would move into the apartment and rent out my house to a young family. The rent would cover my living expenses and a caregiver if I ever needed one. Eventually, when I was gone, whatever remained would be split between Michael and my daughter, Sarah. It wasn't a grand plan. It was just fair. The hardest part was telling Michael and Laura. We sat at the table, me with a cup of tea, them with their arms folded. I'm moving out next month, I said. I found a senior apartment. It has an elevator and grab bars and neighbors who go to bed at 9. It will suit me fine. You're leaving? Michael's face went pale. Because of this? I'm leaving, I said gently, because living here has blurred the lines. You see my house as your solution. You see me as part of your budget. I need some space between us so we can find each other again as family, not as a problem to solve. Laura shook her head. So that's your answer? You'll just rent out the house and let us keep throwing money away on rent? I met her eyes. My answer, I said, is that I will not sign the house papers. I will keep my name, my home, and my dignity. I will help where I can, on my terms, not on a line marked with a yellow sticky note. She stared at me, speechless. She truly had not expected that. Moving at 68 is not for the faint of heart. Sarah drove in from 2 towns over to help me pack. We wrapped dishes in old newspaper, laughed over John's hideous college lamp, and made piles for donation. Are you sure about this, Mom? She asked as we taped up a box of photo albums. I'm sure, I said. I need a place that fits the person I am now, not the role everyone expects. She smiled sadly. Michael's struggling with it. You know that, right? I know, I said. But sometimes love looks like letting your mother be stubborn. The day I moved into the senior apartment, the hallway smelled of fresh paint and someone's chicken soup. A neighbor with bright red lipstick brought me lavender cookies and introduced herself as June. There was a bulletin board in the lobby covered with flyers, movie night, chair yoga, watercolor class. For the first time in years, my calendar had squares that were mine. In the old house, a young couple with a baby moved in. When I handed them the keys, I walked through the empty rooms one last time. The echoes of our family seemed to hang in the air, John's cough, children's footsteps, 1,000 dinners. Thank you, the young woman said. We've been looking for a place like this for months. Take good care of it, I told her. This house has raised a lot of love. On the first of the month, the rent appeared in my bank account. I sat at my little kitchen table in the apartment, looking at the numbers. For most of my life, I had measured my worth in tasks: how many meals cooked, how many shirts ironed, how many rides given. Now, for the first time, I had something that said plainly, you can take care of yourself. It didn't make me powerful. It made me steady. Michael needed time. For a few weeks after I moved out, the calls were brief. How are you? Fine. How's Noah? Fine. The space between us felt like an ocean. Then one Saturday, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Noah on the threshold, clutching a stuffed dinosaur, with Michael behind him holding a grocery bag. Grandma. Noah barreled into my legs. Can I see your elevator again? Of course, I laughed. But first, come in. I made brownies. Michael set the bag on the counter. It was full of fruit, milk, and a bouquet of daisies. This place is nice, he said, looking around. Cozy. It's mine, I answered simply. He nodded, eyes taking in the framed picture of John, the potted plant on the windowsill, the schedule for watercolor class stuck to the fridge with a magnet. After Noah ran off to explore, Michael sat at the table, twisting his cap in his hands. "Mom," he began, "I owe you an apology." I waited. "I was scared," he said. "The rent, the bills, trying to give Noah what he needs. When Laura suggested selling the house, it felt like the only way to breathe. I stopped seeing you as you. I just saw numbers. I thought of Anna at the clinic, of John's letter, of my fingers hovering over the pen." "It's easy to do that," I said quietly. "People look at older folks and see problems to solve. Extra bedrooms to use. Pensions to stretch. They forget we spent decades learning how to stand on our own feet." He swallowed hard. "When you said you were moving out, I thought you were punishing us," he admitted. "But when I came by the old house to pick up a box, and it was empty, I remembered you coming home from the factory, making dinner anyway, paying bills at the kitchen table. Dad used to say, if your mother ever leaves, this place will fall apart." A small laugh escaped me. He was dramatic. "But he was right," Michael said. "You were never just convenient. I'm sorry I treated you like that." I reached across the table and took his hand. "I'm not perfect either," I said. "I should have spoken up sooner. I stayed quiet for so long that you thought my silence meant agreement. That's on me." We sat together in the small kitchen while Noah hummed to himself in the other room. "I set up something," I told Michael. "You should know about it." I explained about the rent, the senior apartment, and the simple trust Anna had helped me draft. After I was gone, the house, and anything left from it, would go to Michael and Sarah equally. Part of it was already earmarked for Noah's college fund. "I'm not keeping it to hurt you," I said. "I'm keeping it so none of us has to panic, now or later." Tears filled his eyes. "Mom, I don't deserve that," he whispered. "Maybe not," I said gently. "But Noah does. And I'm still his grandmother." Noah barreled back into the kitchen at that moment, holding a plastic cup. "Grandma, look." June gave me juice in a fancy glass. I looked at my grandson, at my son, at the little apartment that smelled of chocolate and citrus cleaner. The hurt of that morning with the envelope hadn't vanished. But it no longer defined our story. It was just one chapter. That evening, after they left, I stepped out onto my balcony. Below, the courtyard glowed softly under the porch lights. A woman walked her small dog. Someone laughed from an open window. In my living room, the watercolor set waited on the table for tomorrow's class. I made myself a cup of chamomile tea and sat by the window. The house I had refused to sign away was still standing across town, holding another young family, earning its keep quietly. My children were building their lives, with me beside them but no longer underneath them. Once, I believed aging meant shrinking, into the corner of someone else's home, into smaller and smaller expectations. Now I knew the truth. We do not become less real as we grow older. We do not turn into signatures on dotted lines. We are still the women who kept the lights on. We are still the hearts of the houses we built. And sometimes, the bravest thing we can do is pick up the pen everyone expects us to use. And simply say, no. If this story touched your heart, you can like this video, leave a comment, or share it with someone who might need to hear it. And if you'd like more stories like this, you're always welcome to subscribe to this channel, Lydia's True Stories.